Hi, I'm Sarah Marzano, Principal Analyst covering retail and commerce media at eMarketer. I'm excited to be joined today by Anne Hallock, VP of Sales for the Americas for Mirakl Ads. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. So happy that you're here with us today. So you've joined us to talk about how retailers can stay ahead as retail media and AI take center stage, particularly as we head into advertising week. And retail media has gone from breakout growth channel to a more complex and competitive space. I'm curious, just to start us out from your perspective, what's the most important thing retailers need to get right today in order to ensure future growth?
Sarah, you just used a really interesting word in the middle of that question, which is today. And I think that's really the challenge that we're seeing is a lot of the retailers and leaders in media who went into retail maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, are kind of seeing this wave happen right now where the decisions that they made on technologies 4 or 5 years ago are really having to be revisited as the commerce landscape evolves. And so what we see is this sort of co-evolution of media leaders inside of retail having to make technology decisions that, yes, impact them today, but they're really thinking longer term. We're talking about 12, 24, 36 months, where with limited resources, they're having to make those tech decisions and know that they're going to live with them for a couple of years.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It feels like we're really entering into the next phase of maturity within retail media. And what worked for the past 4 or 5 years as we were kind of putting this all together doesn't necessarily feel like the right fit for what's next. To that end, you've described Mirakl Ads as a commerce-first ad solution. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that looks like in practice and what makes it different from legacy retail media technology?
Absolutely. What I love about how Mirakl Ads approached the opportunity for retail media specifically is that we're really coming out of the marketplace solution for Mirakl, which is adopted within 450 retailers worldwide. And what we're looking at is really the next model of commerce, which is that you should have endless assortment so that if you do have a shopper come to site, they are not leaving without having transacted with you. But you really need to have a core competency inside of advertising and really pay yourself back for the cost of that customer acquisition.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Can you give us an example of how a retailer using this approach captured new ad dollars in a way that they might have missed out on if they hadn't been?
Sure, absolutely. We did a lot of promotion around Cannes with Rakuten in France. And Rakuten had a really interesting problem, actually, Sarah. So this, I think, is an eMarketer statistic that more than half of ad volume for retail media is sponsored search specifically. And so when we look at what we call retail media, most people are referring to sponsored search.
You're right. Yeah.
And the challenge that Rakuten had on site is that they really needed to activate those dollars to actually spend that whole budget. And when you look at sort of the, secret challenges that retailers have, we talk a lot about incremental measurement, we talk a lot about attribution. There is sort of the meat and potatoes challenge that retailers might have. And so with Rakuten, the problem that they were solving is how do we make sure that we spend through that whole budget that this advertiser has given us? And so one of the ways that they activated with Mirakl Ads is that they actually are using Google Shopping offsite. And so what we're doing is we're running that budget on site and then actually activating it to spend through that whole allotment offsite. And so really what they're doing is preserving margin, winning that incremental ad dollar, but also making sure that the advertiser is getting everything that they expect.
Yeah, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit more about how Mirakl is using AI today in ways that are aimed at reducing friction for retailers today versus things that might feel like a little bit more buzzy or future leaning.
When you start to talk about agentic, what I get very excited about, and this was actually in a report that you wrote, that you published, where you talk about how I think it's by 2029, more than half the population will be a Gen AI user. And within that report, you had talked about how people who are already using AI have a slight preference to search via AI versus social media. And I had a moment, as an elder millennial of thinking, God, social media? 10 years ago, could you have ever imagined that people would be shopping on social media?
Right.
And you kind of have that moment of thinking, are we going to be laughing about this 2 or 3 years from now where we just can't imagine that, certain parts of the population were overly skeptical or didn't see it coming. And I feel really grateful to be in an organization that, like I said, because of the marketplace capability, is really committed to getting this right, because we have to get it right for marketplace for it to feed into ads and be successful as well.
Yeah, I feel like you covered off on so many important pieces there. Like, first and foremost for me is the fact that when we look at the biggest frustrations that retail media ad buyers have when it comes to scaling their retail media spend, and we look at where the retail media networks themselves are struggling, it's really in like the basic fundamentals, right? It's figuring out the right amount of resources to run effective campaigns. It's reducing friction that's caused by the lack of interoperability between platforms and reconciling the fact that measurement is still not apples to apples. And I think you're absolutely right that like AI is positioned to solve for some of those less sexy, but really crucial to solve pieces of retail media, so we can get to the more interesting pieces and parts. And on the flip side, it's been fascinating to watch how agentic AI and LLM-based sort of shopping assistant surfaces have started to influence the way consumers discover and research and consider products. So it almost feels like folks in this industry need to have this sort of bifurcated lens, right? Where they're focusing on the most innovative pieces and the things that could happen going forward, but also like what tools are available today that can really change the way we're doing business, right? And make us more efficient and effective in our operations.
I love that. You know, I think about the concept of business continuity planning. You do planning 3 years ahead, 2 years ahead, 1 year ahead, and then you have your sort of quarterly plan. And when we think of generative engine optimization, GEO, a phrase again that didn't exist maybe even a year ago. We sort of have to look back at those analogies of years past and really understand this is not a question of if AI impacts the shopper journey, it's how AI will impact the shopper journey. And for us, we really look at it holistically at Mirakl, which is to say the retailer is evolving their offering to meet 2025 and beyond, which is that they have to win through endless assortment via marketplace. They have to reduce those inventory carrying costs by making sure that they have the marketplace activated. But then they have to pay themselves back once that shopper actually gets to site, where they're monetizing via advertising, but they're also surfacing products that their suppliers and sellers have voted with their ad dollars to surface. And again, it's that flywheel, it's that virtuous cycle where we really believe that we're completing that cycle for them.
Now, if we were having this conversation a year from now, what progress would you want to point to as proof that Commerce First retail media is winning?
We are going into the holiday season right now. It's a major milestone for anyone who's in any kind of media, but specifically retail media, where you're looking at things like Black Friday and obviously the Christmas shopping season. And I think about the retailers who I work with most closely, and what success would look like is that there has been a payoff for a decision that they made where they're working with Mirakl for Marketplace, Mirakl for Ads, and they're able to capture that net new dollar from the shopper and the supplier advertiser at a very low cost way, that there's a low cost to serve that advertiser, that there's a way to capture that shopper who has come on site and isn't leaving unless they get all of the things that they're trying to shop for the holiday season. And so for me, a year from now, there is ease, there is scale, and there is profitability thanks to the fact that they have selected Mirakl as their partner.
I think that's a really energizing vision and messaging that's really going to resonate with anyone who sits at this intersection of media and retail.
Thank you.
I think that's such a good vision and a perfect place to close out our chat. I want to thank you for joining us and sharing everything that you're working on, as well as your POV of the marketplace and retail media in general.
Sarah, we're so grateful for your voice in this space. You are someone who I just am grateful. Every time you post, I learn something. Every time I see you interact with people on stage, I learn something. So thank you.
Thank you.